One question that we're asked all the time is, how do I upload sermons to my website? So first let's look and see how these would be displayed on the front end of the site. So in this case, we're going to go to Media and we're going to go to Listen Online. We can see here the way that it would be displayed. We have several different sermons. We have the reference in most cases, and here we have several different speakers. You can have only one speaker or you can have multiple speakers. Here we have multiple speakers. And then we have the date. On the front end, you can organize the way these are displayed by the most recently published, the most viewed. You can list them alphabetically. You can also choose to list them by who preached them or when they were preached. You can choose to list them by alphabetical order and several different things. But let's see how that we get these sermons online. If you go to your website /administrator, so in this case it's goodshepherdbaptistmooresville.com/administrator, we're brought to the back end of our website. Now regularly you would be prompted for a username and password. In this case I'm already logged in. You were given a username and password by Provision Websites when you bought your website. If you don't know what that username and password is, send us an email and we can get that out to you. The component that controls the sermons from the back end is called Sermon Speaker. So we're going to browse down the side here, and we're going to go to Components and then Sermon Speaker. Now your back end may look slightly different than this, but in any event, you're looking for the Sermon Speaker component. Once you get there, you'll be presented with these same options. The very first thing that you need to do is make sure that your sermon has been uploaded. We do that from the Media Manager. There are a couple of links here. You have Media Manager here. You have the Media Manager here. It doesn't matter where you click as long as you wind up at the Media Manager. So here you can see, in this case, the sermons that have already been uploaded using the Media Manager. To upload a sermon, click Browse, select the sermon that you'd like to upload, open it, and then go up here and hit Upload. Once it's uploaded, you can then go and list the sermon on your website. You need to be sure that you have a series. This doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It can be something as simple as general sermons, or it can be as elaborate as the specific sermon series that you're preaching at that time. But there does have to be a series in order for the sermon to be displayed online. Next, you have to be sure that you have a speaker. In this case, there are multiple speakers. There only has to be one, but you do have to have a speaker in place in order to list the sermon on the front end of your website. Once all of these things are in place, then you go to Sermon, and you can actually create a new sermon. Now don't get confused. Even though you've already uploaded this sermon, it hasn't been created in order to be displayed on the front end of the site. So once it's uploaded, you have a series in place, you have a speaker in place, you can then begin to list the sermon on the front end of the website. So in this case, we're going to go to New. Create a new sermon for the front end of the site. We'll give it a title. If we want, we'll list the scripture reference. We can put the date that it's listed, and then we're going to put where the sermon is that we want to display. Now, if you uploaded it through the Media Manager that we showed earlier, you can click this little thing here and choose the name of the sermon. So you can scroll down here, and this displays all of the sermons that have been uploaded through the Media Manager. If it hasn't been uploaded through the Media Manager, or maybe it's in a different location or even hosted on another website, you can click here and you can actually put the path and the web address that the sermon is actually listed on. You can list the sermon number, although not necessary, the amount of time that the sermon takes. This is where you choose the speaker. You choose what series it's listed in. You choose who it's entered by. Again, this will probably already be filled out based on who's logged in. You can list sermon notes. Again, this isn't necessary, but you can put them. You can upload images or other different things that you'd like to upload. None of that is necessary. If you have a podcast and this has been set up, you want to be sure that Sermoncast is clicked yes. If you don't click that and you do have a podcast, this won't be forwarded to iTunes in order to be displayed on your podcast. You want to be sure that you publish the sermon. If you don't click published, it won't be displayed on the front end of your website. There's also options for additional files. Let's say, for instance, that your sermon had a handout and you have a PDF hosted someplace on your website or another website. You can put the file path here, and they'll have the option then to download that file as they listen to the sermon. Once you've made all these changes, you simply click Save, and it's then listed on the front end of your website. From the front end of your website, which we'll go to now, there are several different options for listening and for viewing. We're just going to select one here just to see how it's displayed. If we click here, we're brought to the sermon itself. We're given several different options. We can listen to it by clicking here. This is a Flash module, and so they will need Flash on their computer in order to listen to it that way. If they don't have Flash, they can download the sermon, or they can listen to it in a pop-up player. There are several different options. In any event, they can always listen to the sermon, even if they're oftentimes listening to it from a mobile device. It will usually work even with the sermon download. Here you can see there are no notes listed, but we have the reference and we have the title of the sermon. From here, it can be listened to by anybody that logs on to your website.